Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And would you like to hear something really funny? Humza Yousaf is insisting that the Scottish civil servants are apolitical, that they are impartial, that they don't do just the bidding of the SNP, but they work for everyone in Scotland, and they are in no way biased towards the aims and desires of an independent Scotland. And if you believe that, I have a camper van to sell you. It's clearly a load of old rubbish, isn't it? If he believes what he's saying, then he's mentally ill. And otherwise, he is doing what he normally does. Lying. What do we think? Is he mentally ill or is he a liar? Well, we know what he is. He's a liar. Of course he is. So we'll have a look at this article to see why he thinks, although nobody else thinks it, why he thinks that the Scottish Civil Service is anything other than the political arm of the SNP. So what's the provisional wing, isn't it? Anyway, here goes. So Humza Yousaf insists the Scottish Government civil servants are impartial and apolitical amid continued work on Skexit. When they're working on party political matters, they cannot possibly be apolitical. Skexit is not government policy. It is not anything that the SNP can do as either the party or as the party of government, because it is not within their aegis. It's not within their remit to do anything with regards to independence. So if any civil servant at all is working on anything to do with independence, then that civil servant is not being impartial and apolitical. He's being completely partial and political and working not for the Scottish Government, but for the SNP, Party Political Matters. And therefore, that civil servant should be fired for being a party apparatchik. And if the SNP want to rehire him, that's a different matter. Or the SNP should be billed for that time. And that isn't going to happen either. But that certainly needs to be investigated out of Westminster. And if Westminster say, no, you're using civil servants. And remember that the civil service in Scotland is paid directly from Westminster. It is not paid out of Scottish money. It is paid directly from Westminster. Then Westminster needs to say, right, we're billing you or we're firing that civil servant. And you only have to fire a couple of those civil servants. And believe you me, no one in the civil service in Scotland will work on matters of Skexit. Anyway, the First Minister was forced to defend his civil service amid accusations they were not allowed to be working on breaking up the UK because they're not. It's not within their job. Anyway, Humza Yousaf confirmed civil servant work on independence will continue as he has a mandate to push for breaking up the UK. No, he doesn't. As he insisted bureaucrats are impartial and apolitical. No, they're not. He was speaking out after call to made for the UK's head Mandarin to clamp down on Skexit spending and work. And he needs to do that immediately. The First Minister was grilled by MSPs at Holyrood on Wednesday over his programme for government and fielded a question from SNP MSP Kenny Gibson about whether he had any contact with the UK government over the use of public resources to push for his manifesto promises. In other words, why are you using government resources for party political aims? It's quite illegal. Breaking up the UK is a nationalist main aim, and the Scottish Government has published 5 independent prospectuses in the past 2 years at great expense, where money could have otherwise been spent on things that actually matter, like the NHS and social care. This is despite the Supreme Court ruling against Holyrood having the power to hold the second referendum. Nicola Sturgeon was so adamant and sure that this would go ahead that she picked a date for it, October the 19th. We're holding our breath because I haven't seen anything come through the door yet. Anyway, this plan was quietly dropped after the crushing defeat in court when they were basically handed their arse and told, no, you don't have the power to do it. Go away, you silly woman, and be the First Minister of Scotland, not the leader of the SNP. There is a difference. If you want to be the leader of the SNP, give up being the First Minister. You don't have to be both. Anyway, Mr. Yousaf has continued his predecessor's work of putting out papers on various topics, with 80,000 being forked out on them so far. No, 80,000 on the printing costs so far. Nobody is being, they're being very shady, shall we say, about the 20-odd civil servants that have been employed to put them together, plus the cost of an independence minister at 120,000 a year. All in, it's over, well, it's millions, plural, so far. Anyway, this has led to mounting criticism from opposition parties who have claimed that the government may be doing this illegal. There's no doubting it. It's absolutely no doubt that this is completely illegal. Labour peer Lord Foulkes urged the UK government to look into it. He said, with ministers later confirming that the chief civil servant, Simon Case, would be coming up with new guidance. Mr Gibson asked his leader if there was any update to this, and with the First Minister quickly jumping to the defence of his civil service. How can you defend this? It's quite clearly illegal and a misuse of public funds. You're spending government money on party political matters. It's quite wrong. Now, the UK government ought to say it's wrong and it's illegal. If you continue to do it, you're breaking the law by asking them to do it, and they're breaking the law by doing it, and if they continue to do it, heads will roll. And you only have to threaten a civil servant with the sack for them to stop doing exactly what they're doing. And the very fact that they're choosing to do it and not saying, actually, that's not a government matter, that's a party political matter, shows that those civil servants engaged in it are political, are partial. They're not impartial, they're not apolitical. They know what they're doing, and they're still doing it. He said, as a member is aware, the various interventions from members of the House of Commons, members of the House of Lords, and even the UK government ministers, alluding to the fact that the Scottish government shouldn't be doing work that we have a mandate for. Please point to where you have a mandate. You do not have a mandate. You lost the referendum. Every poll shows that you're in the second place, not the first place, and it's falling. And more people vote against the SNP than for it. There is no mandate. Anyway, he said, we have, of course, since the Supreme Court judgment, we've had clear guidance from the Permanent Secretary around, of course, what we can do. And I'll just quote from John Paul Marks, Permanent Secretary at the Finance Public Administration Committee on the 16th of May this year. He said, and this is from John Paul Marks, he said, we serve the government of the day. That includes with regards to constitutional reform, as has been well understood on devolution for many years. The civil service in the Scottish Government serves the Scottish Government and its priorities. And we provide policy advice, including the development of prospectus paper series for the government to set out its constitutional objectives. He says, we now know that excellent civil service work, of course, is impartial, apolitical manner that will provide assistance and blah, 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 and a load of old bollocks. That's what they are saying. That's what the Scottish Civil Service head has said. But it's not what the law says. And just because some guy in an office in Edinburgh says that this is what we're doing and it's fine, doesn't make it fine. And of course, it doesn't come from Scottish Central Office there. It's a legal matter. And it's a Westminster matter because they're the ones paying for it. There's going to be hell to pay over this. And as I say, all they have to do is just say, right, well, we're not funding it anymore. And anyone working there, we'll fire them. Because they're working for party political matters. If you want to do consultations on devolved matters, you have to pay for it. You have to go to an outside source and pay for it. But it's party political, not governmental. Now, they are arguing that it's constitutional matters now, but if it was constitutional matters that was nothing to do with devolution, was nothing to do, rephrase that. If it was a constitutional matter about devolution, they do have that power. But when it's a constitutional matter about independence, they don't. And the Supreme Court has been very clear about that. And so, yeah, sure, you can do work on devolution matters, but you can't do work on independence matters. This is where the immovable object meets the unstoppable force, I think. And who's going to win it? I don't think anyone knows. I shall come up. Yep, I don't know. It's going to be one of those Clash of the Titans, I think. It may even end up in another court case. which will be interesting. And especially if the SNP lose that one, they'll be stamping their tiny little feet, won't they? But if they win it, my God, there'd be no stopping them. Oh, well, let's see. And he probably will take it to court, Humza Yousaf, because that's all he's got. He doesn't have reasons of logic, and he certainly doesn't have a mandate. So all he's got is going to the court again. Let's hope the court agrees again and says no. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do please hit the subscribe button. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and keep an eye on these buggers because they'll spend your money until there's none left. Bye.